Jerry and Esther had a wonderful experience last month. They went whitewater rafting in Colorado with friends. And as they were driving in the bus, looking out the window of the bus at this raging river, they said to one another on many occasions, "We must be out of our mind." For this river was really flowing. The water was very high and the river was very fast. And so it became very obvious to Jerry and Esther and their friends as they got into their raft that they were not going to have much effect in paddling upstream. The current of this river was such, it was obvious that going with the flow was the best way of approaching it. We want to call your attention to this flow that is the flow of your life experience. And we want you to see how hard it is for us to understand why it would not be obvious to you that going with the flow is the most natural and obvious thing to do. Why you would try anything else is odd. As Jerry and Esther got into the stream, they noticed that there were several places in the river where very big boulders, rocks, were rooted to the bottom of the stream. In other words, they weren't going with the flow. But because the flow of the river was so strong, those boulders that were stationary in the stream were taking quite a beating. In fact, such a beating that their river guide was very careful to point out to them, you don't want to get your raft up against one of those rocks. Because if you get your raft up against one of those rocks with this kind of a raging flow, it will beat you up. And then Esther remembered the disclaimer that they all had to sign before they got in the boat. Pages and pages of things that after the first paragraph Esther stopped reading because it was evident that the river guide did not think that many of them would survive this day. And as Esther saw this river and those rocks that were standing against the flow, she understood that. And we want you to understand that that's what happens to you sometimes when you get hold of something, you get hold of a justification or a defensive attitude or a rationalization, and you cling to the floor of the river, a river that, by the way, you are responsible for the speed of. Do you get that? Do you know that every time your contrasting life experience causes you to know what you don't want, even if you don't put words to it, you know what you do want? And when you know what you do want, when that preference or desire is born, that's what causes this river to flow faster and faster and faster. So the longer you live in your physical body, the more you live life, the more you precisely identify what you want, and the more you add to this flow. Do you know that you cannot say, I don't want that, without saying, that is what I prefer? This is the way the contrast works. So you get the river moving faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. But if you're pointed in opposition, then the river is beating up on you. And anytime you are pointed in opposition, that's what negative emotion is. In the moment that you let go of the defensive or justifying or rationalizing thought, in the moment that you release it, you stop paddling upstream. And do you know what happens when you stop paddling upstream? Your boat turns and starts going downstream. You don't have to paddle downstream. You don't even have to paddle your turn. Just stop paddling upstream. Let go of the oars. Let go of your determined justification or defensiveness or rationalization or beating the drum of what's wrong or explaining how you got there or explaining how long you've been there or explaining that it's not there that you are there or complaining about being there. In the moment that you stop doing that, the river will turn you. And do you know, in the moment that you stop doing that and the turn takes place, you feel relief. So just stop doing that, paddling upstream. And as you stop doing that, the river will turn you and the river will carry you. And the relief that you will feel in the turning in the stream is everything. In fact, that is what we want you to focus your powerful now upon always. Am I pointed this way or this way in the stream? Am I paddling against what I've been asking for, or am I letting the stream carry me toward what I am asking for? Can you imagine Jerry and Esther putting their canoe in the stream, and as they're setting in, saying, wait a minute, and then they ask the river guide, how far will we flow in this river? Oh, about 10 miles, he will say. Well, I would like to get back in the truck and put my boat on top of it, and I would like to drive 10 miles back downstream, and then I would like to put my boat in just a few feet from where I'm going to take it out. Seems more efficient, doesn't it? In other words, why not start out right where I want to end up? And we say, what's the fun of that? That seems ridiculous when you talk about that river ride, doesn't it? And yet, it's the way so many of you behave relative to things you want. You say, I'm over here and I want to be over there. And then you say, and because I'm over here instead of over there, I'm going to be miserable as long as I'm over here. And we say, your misery has you pointed upstream and won't let you go over there. And you say, oh, well, the stream is strong enough. You said the stream was strong enough that I can't fight against the current. So I'll just fight against the current, and then I'll just let it be hard to get over there. And we say, why do that? Remember the rewards, you say. They'll write books about me if I paddle upstream. If I dig a big, deep hole and then climb out of it, everyone applauds. But if I just stand there, not in a hole, no one even notices me. Have you ever been in traffic that is not moving? Jerry and Esther have just come through California, and so there was a lot of traffic that was not moving. And they noticed that even though they were accustomed to traveling 55, 65, 75 miles an hour, that when the traffic would stand still, it was irritating. But then when it would begin to go, even the slightest little bit, they would feel relief. There was something about moving in the direction of where you want to go that gave them so much relief from standing still. And so we want you to understand that if you will begin to relax and not fight against the current by talking about what's wrong, by complaining about what's wrong, by pointing out that you're not where you want to be, by taking score of where you are, if you'll stop doing that, if you'll try to be just the slightest bit more hopeful or optimistic, or at least not complaining, that you will stop that resistance and the stream will turn you and you will feel relief. And it's the relief factor that we want you to begin focusing upon, because if through the day, no matter where you are in the stream, you are relaxing with the intention of giving yourself relief, what's happening is you are bit by bit, day by day, releasing more and more and more layers of resistance, and you are allowing the stream to carry you more in the direction of what you are wanting. And as you begin to really allow yourself to go with the flow, the speed of the stream without resistance is exhilarating. The speed of the stream with resistance is excruciating. So there are two factors always involved in the way you feel. How fast your stream is flowing, which is totally what you've caused to happen, and what you're doing with your thoughts right now in relationship to the stream. Sometimes people say, well, I need to do more goal setting, and I need to say more affirmations. I need to be more disciplined, and I need to do more of the things that will make things happen. And we say, we want you to understand that your life experience itself has been all that has been necessary for you to establish your future experience. Every time someone's rude to you, you want people to be nicer. When you're rude, you want to be nicer. When you're confused, you want more clarity. When you don't have enough of something you want more of it. In other words, you're constantly adding to this vibrational escrow. And it is so well tended to by the source energy that is you, by the source energy that has become the vibrational equivalent of everything that you have been asking for. You could not even, if you had all day long, all week long, all year long, you could not sit and write an accurate description of what your life has caused you to become. But the source energy part of you knows it so clearly and is calling you so constantly toward it that if you will just listen for the way you feel and make it your dominant intention to reach for the best feeling thought you can find from wherever you are, you will find relief, 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 relief. And as you do, the stream will carry you closer and closer and closer to the fulfillment of the things that you want, and you will get the fulfillment of all of those things that you want. We promise you every one of them will manifest, but in the meantime, you'll be having a joyful ride. The speed of your river has been established before you were born, and you've been contributing to it every day of your life experience. And so this speed factor is not what you need to try to deal with. It's already happening. What you want to pay attention to is, what are you doing within this river that you've already got flowing? Are you flowing with it? Or are you trying to fight against it? And the way you flow with it is by looking for things that feel better and better. And the way you flow against it is by making the worst of things. The way you flow with it is by making the best of things. The other day, Esther was working. She was against a deadline. She had only a few hours to finish something that had to be in the FedEx box by 4:30 that day. And Jerry had already done his part on it. Everything that was left to do was for Esther to do. And so Esther was diligently after it. She was going to do it. It was something that she had to do, or she would violate all kinds of other intentions that were very important to her, like keeping her word, or like keeping the people who were waiting for it from having to reschedule things. She was going to do it. And then Jerry announced, "Oh, what a beautiful day this is." They were in San Diego. "I think," he said, as he is breathing deeply and putting on his running shoes, "I think I will take a walk." And Esther said, "Oh, how very nice for you." So off Jerry goes on his walk, and Esther goes back to her work. And as she is doing her work, she is feeling sorry for herself that she's not out having a walk. And she is beating the drum of, "I've got too much to do, and I need to get better organized, and I've got to stop sleeping so much, and I need to find more people that can do more of these things." And as she is beating that drum, she is pointed right upstream. Now, she's got a raging river going. You'll never meet anyone who has a stream moving faster than Jerry and Esther. They've been at it for a while, and their stream is romping. And a little bit of resistance goes a long way in a stream that's moving that fast. And so Esther is realizing she's feeling terrible. And then she remembered what she's been hearing us say, that I am where I am, that what is what is. And I cannot change necessarily the circumstances this red hot minute. In other words, the money I have right now is, the pounds I weigh right now are. What I have to do today is. Everything is as a result of what I've been flowing before. This is what is. And there's not a lot that you can do about changing very much what is, because it's been a while in coming. But you do, Esther remembered, have the option of making the best of what is, or making the worst of what is. In other words, you have option about what you do in the stream. Esther realized in that moment she did not have the option of speeding all the way toward the culmination that she wants. In other words, she can't do that this red hot minute right now. She has to flow the energy to do it. But what she can do, what you can do, is you can find relief in this moment by not pointing upstream. You can withdraw your negative banter, and in doing so, reach for thoughts that feel a little better, and the stream will turn you. And when the stream turns you, you're going to feel one whopping relief, especially if you've got that much resistance going against that kind of stream. And so Esther sat there, and she thought, it is a beautiful day, and I'm glad that Jerry is out in it. And then she thought, I'm glad I can see it from where I am. Look where I'm sitting. In the most beautiful city overlooking the most beautiful water, I can even see the sailboats. And then she said, and here I am sitting in utter comfort in this magnificent bus with this extraordinary computer that makes this work so easy to do. This work that I get to do. How lucky am I that this gets to flow through me, and that I get to play with this material, and and now not only has she stopped doing this, she's turned so magnificently in the stream, and she's begun flowing with the stream. And now her work is more life-giving than the walk she thought she wanted to take. In other words, now she's not flowing against a current. Now she's flowing with the current that she set into motion even before she stepped foot into this physical body. Now she's flowing with the current that she's been establishing every day of her life. Now she's in the flow of who she is, and now she's having an exhilarating experience. And Jerry came back from his walk utterly refreshed, and met Esther, who had been on a different kind of ride, who was utterly refreshed. And what we're saying to you is, I am where I am, and I may not have options right now of putting all of the money that I eventually want in my bank account today, or finding the person that I want to live in my bedroom today, or finding all of the things that I want in my house, in my life, in my garage, in my experience today. But I certainly have the option of turning and going in the direction of all of them that are waiting for me in vibrational escrow. And what you will begin to understand as you begin to go with the flow of that which is in your vibrational escrow, you will stop splitting hairs about how much of it is manifested this red hot minute, because the ride will be so joyful it will not matter to you. Our physical friends sometimes worry about those words because they sometimes think, oh, Abraham, you're just trying to get us to feel good about the lack that we are living.